So, actively listen and practice three-way communication. Have you ever been speaking to anybody and you can tell they're not listening? It's never happened? How many of you, Jane, I know you go out and actually give training on the job sites or at the school. I know most of you are doing some sort of training, whether it's a toolbox talk or they come to the office and you give training, right? When you're out there, can you identify pretty quickly if people are paying attention? What's the average, so I'm going to go around the room. Russ, what's the average size of your crews on the job site? Is it, maybe I'll just kind of show of hands, is it 10 people or less on your crews? Do you have a crew up to 20 people? Anyone with crews higher than 30 people? Are they meeting together weekly to do a toolbox talk? Are they meeting daily to do a daily huddle?
Both.
How effective do you think that meeting is when you get beyond 10 people?
You gotta break it down to 25, 30% usually.
How effective do you think that meeting is if you have up to 20 people? So, we're already setting ourselves up for a lower outcome than what we can achieve if we look at crew size. If we start to give the sub-foreman, if you will, or that lead person some of these skills, if we empower and engage them and we ask them to break into smaller work units, those work units that are actually going to be operational in the field, do you think that we'll begin to achieve the things that we look for, that we want? So the size of the crew is really important, just like the size of this class is really important. Linda's presented to over 100 people. I presented to, I think it was 250 people up at UMass at the OSHA Summit. And you can tell people aren't actively listening. What are some of the signs and signs that you see when people aren't listening? What do you look for?
Oh, we have mumbling white noise in the background.
Yeah, that's the worst.
Blank stares.
Blank stares.
They're on their
They're looking
phones.
past you, they're on their phone,
phones.
maybe they're like this, the door's over here, right?
Constantly checking their watches.
Yeah, body language, right?
Eye rolling.
So you have open door policies. How many of you knock on your supervisor's door, a coworker's door, and say, do you have 10 minutes? Is now a good time to speak? Or do you just go in there and start a conversation? So now we're talking about respect. Sure, I'm not perfect. I walked into our VDC director's office the other day. I was feeling like I needed to walk around. I walked into his office and I started talking to him. And a minute later I said, that was really unfair of me. Right? I'm sorry, but do you have time to talk right now? So I think it's good to speak about it, kind of prepare the scene for listening, the other person, right? As the person who wants to speak, prepare the other person to listen. And if they're not listening, it's apparent that you're distracted. Can I come back in 5 minutes? I remember having a meeting with a subcontractor and I was late. And when I showed up, I apologized 3 times. But the trigger was already pulled. And he was just aggravated at me and was just like he was launching from his chair. So I said, look, I've apologized 3 times. I'm sorry. This is going to take 20 minutes if we just sit here and just going to go through this. I believe this meeting's really important. We had an agenda already set out. And I gave him a chance to take a deep breath, and he said, "You're absolutely right, I'm sorry. Let's do this again. You know, let's get to business here," right? So, treating team members with respect when they are speaking, and maybe now is not the right time. Don't try to do things at the same time. If you walk up to a supervisor and they're putting time into the daily reports, doing that, obviously they're trying to complete something. So as a crew member, maybe you got to say, Sally, I've got something that's really urgent. It's going to take me 1 minute to explain that. Set what your need is. No, this is an emergency. I need your full attention right now. Pay attention to nonverbal cues such as body language and eye contact. I think we're all alert to those things, but I would say that we should not assume that our crew leaders or crews are actually looking at these things either, right? Listen to hear, to understand what is being said versus listening to come up with a response. This isn't Jeopardy, right? Oh, right? You've watched Jeopardy or you've watched something like that, right? They're talking and you want to be the first. You want to be the first to respond. You want to show the group that you know the answer. But as I said, it really takes an effort. Let the individual speak. Listen. To Jody's point, there's an opioid addiction crisis in the construction industry. There's a death by suicide crisis in the construction industry. I believe that if we listen and we get to know our workers and our colleagues, just maybe, there's a hope that we can intervene. So listening is really, really important. And I know I'm on a journey, so I'm still trying to develop that skill. So if I'm not listening and I'm with you, just call me out on it. Okay, so I'm giving you permission to call me out on it. Asking clarifying questions. Right, so if you're speaking to somebody, are they just like in a daze, a glaze? Are they asking you any questions about what you're saying? How cold was it out? Oh boy, how cold was it? Well, it sounds like it was really cold. Now you know they're actively listening, right? When they start to give you some clues, whether they're asking a question or just saying something clearly they picked up from the discussion. Practice three-way communication. Have you ever given instructions to somebody? Oh, I got it. Yeah, I got it, no problem. And you go out there, was it even close to what you were hoping for? Right? So we're going to use three-way communication to drive an outcome that's closer to what our expectations are, okay? We're going to make sure we have the listener's attention. And how do we do that?
Ask them to repeat.
We have body language, right?
Observation.
They're asking clarifying questions. We have observation. Maybe we've even asked them. Maybe we made a schedule to have a conversation. Be direct and concise. I do not need to know how the clock was built. I just need to know what time it is. So as a supervisor, set what your expectations are. And there might be some of your crew members may actually need coaching on what that means, right? So that might be something that you want to talk to them privately about. If their tendency is to give you more detail than is what is necessary. Ask team members to repeat the message, as Jody indicated. So this is something that I know in the military, right, Chester?
Oh, yes.
So the commander, the squad leader would give some instructions,
Repeat it back.
right? And it gives the commander an opportunity to clear up any misunderstandings.
Right.
Because you're really life critical, right? On a
Yes.
battlefield, war field. A bad decision or a misunderstanding could lead to a catastrophic event. So why in construction, when people have, what, a 79, 78% chance of having an injury, do we not ask for clarification? To repeat the message.
Too nervous to speak up.
What's that?
Too nervous to speak up.
Lack of courage. And hurry.
We have communication barriers now, too.
So now you have, to your point, you've got English as a second language in some cases, right? And I know Kevin had the same experience in the state police. It was, what's the instruction? You repeat that back, right? Clarify any misunderstandings.
I do want to add to the three-way communication piece. It was in the list, but in terms of this example, if you don't have, the paper airplanes, if you can't, actually cut a 2x4 the way you want it, but you're verbally giving instructions of exactly what you want, that's where the asking the person you're giving instructions to then say, you say to them, okay, please repeat back what I've asked you to do. That's the two-way when they repeat back. And then the third way is clarifying any mistakes they make along the way. So that's kind of the three-way back and forth. And students have said, my crew is going to be not happy with me asking them, can you repeat back? Because they aren't in the military, and and one way to get around that is to say, or to address it, say, I'm asking you to repeat this back to me, not because I don't think you got it necessarily, but sometimes I am not as skilled as I need to be in giving instructions. So you put it back on yourself, and then the outcome is the same, but it's not saying, repeat back to me because you don't listen well, or you're stupid, or whatever they end up thinking. So that's when the instructions are verbal as opposed to being able to demonstrate like this. Yeah. And you can do this exercise that way by not going through it and just saying, make me a paper airplane, here are the instructions, follow these, and then say, Scott, please repeat back to me what I want you to do, and then see what you come up with.
Okay. So, at this point, you should have a blank piece of paper on your desk. Linda and I need a paper airplane from each of you. Go ahead and start. You got 2 minutes to build the paper airplane.
2 minutes.
I have to step out. I've got an appointment. I'll be back here in 2 minutes.
Me too.
Okay, put the paper airplanes down.
Origami.
It won't fly, but I'll just wicked cool.
What's the symbol?
Like the mock-up.
Oh, it's this one. That's right, the origami is small. They don't really fly very far.
Did you do that?
Still mentally.
It's not a bad place to be.
I know we should.
Don't like our airplane?
So many to choose from.
That's not what I was looking for. Look at the variation.
No.
Whose fault is that?
Ours.
We didn't ask clarifying questions.
We didn't ask questions. But you weren't.
So how many times over your career, maybe it's your mom or dad being disappointed with how you did the chore, or your teacher, how you performed your homework, or maybe it's at work. How many times has your supervisor like come down on you because you didn't do what they were expecting?
Including today?
Including today. Right. But when you reflect on that, as a supervisor, and your team didn't meet the objectives as a supervisor, was there something that you could have done to improve the outcome so that it gets closer to what your expectations are? So that's why I view this as safe, productive, quality outcome. Because I believe that when we use these skills, you're actually improving productivity and quality. The contractor was, I think, reached out to Linda and myself. I met this safety director at an OSHA Institute training session. And I think he saw the information on CPWR's website about the Foundations for Safety Leadership. Organizationally, they're on the lower maturity side, so he was really hesitant to advance this as an initiative within their company. What I suggested that he do was actually go into the office and ask his boss to build a paper airplane and then leave the room. There were 3 people in the room. There was a chief executive, operations officer, and then another executive. He gave them 2 minutes to build a paper airplane. He went in there and said, "That's not what I'm looking for. Look at the variation." And then next thing was he gave him another sheet of paper and went through all the steps that were necessary to build that paper airplane. In construction, we have drawings. We can do a video so we can cascade that instruction time and time again in a reliable way. You can ask people verbally and then give them permission. I'm not quite clear on that. We also do mock-ups in construction, don't we? Right? So what I would do is, okay, get your second sheet of paper. We're going to build a paper airplane together. First, we're going to fold it along the long axis. We're going to split it in half like a hot dog bun. And then we're going to take the upper right-hand corner, stage left, and we're going to fold that towards the crease. So it should just look like this. And then we're going to fold the other up corner down towards the center crease. So after these 3 folds, your paper airplane should look like this. Now we're going to take the paper airplane, we're going to fold it in half, just like a hot dog bun. Now we want to form the wings. So you take this side of the paper, you bring the edge of the piece of paper down to the bottom of the plane. We got this, so it looks like this now. And now we're going to form the other wing. Take the other side of the paper down and fold that down so it's touching the bottom of the paper. And then we'll crease that. And your paper airplane will look something like this. I guarantee you that if you were to do this little exercise in a group that hasn't experienced it before, that they would complete that airplane in less time and it would be without variation. Time and time again. They usually build it within a minute and 40 seconds. So what does this tell us on construction sites? What should we be doing?
Showing examples.
Showing by example. Hey, we have a new process. Let's get the whole group together and let's go through it one time. Maybe let's videotape it since we're taking the time to get the group together. Let's videotape it and then provide that video file to other people so they can go back, right? How about a visualization board? You have a meeting, you got a logistics plan. So if you use a visualization board, I've seen people actually come back to that critical work activity. You've got it marked up. We had to take a flagpole down in New Haven. And I had a huddle prior to the activity. I gave everybody permission to speak. I said, I don't want anyone to leave here with a question. I said, you all are empowering each one of you to participate. We went through it step by step. And we left it on the board. Over the course of the next 2 hours, I saw at least 3 or 4 people come back just to check measurements and everything else, right?